and welcome to Diamonds in the Rough with Fearzet, where the unpopular opinion is made popular. I'm Fearzet, and the 90s were not a good time for superhero movies.
It was a genre in its infancy, and like all infants, it was, well, stupid.
Kill the heroes! Yes, kill them! Kill them! Destroy everything!
Really stupid. Like, I've seen Fanforstic, and I would give that movie a fucking Oscar before giving even a semi-positive review to Batman, Robin, The Phantom, or the 1990 Captain America movie.
It really took until 2003 for superhero movies to really grow up and achieve a status of true greatness. That year we got not one, but 3 phenomenal comic book films. 2 of which the public outright hated, and yes, I will be covering them both later in the series.
Now, that being said, there was a superhero film released in 1997 that, while not achieving a status of true greatness per se, came far closer to achieving that status than any superhero film pre-2003, or at least any comic book film. That film? Mark Tappei's Spawn.
Oh yes, I am serious. This show is called Diamonds in the Rough for a reason. Yes, I enjoyed X-Men, the Donner Superman movies, and the Burton Batman movies. Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man movie was a lot of fun, and while I don't consider Blade a good movie per se, it is something of a guilty pleasure. But Spawn is the only comic book film pre-2003 that I flat out loved with every fiber of my being. With a relatable and deep protagonist, fantastic acting from its lead and central villain, kick-ass cinematography, and surprisingly clever themes that are generally well executed, Spawn is a criminally underrated home run of a superhero film in a time when almost everything was a plain and simple strikeout.
So, let's find out how the depths of hell can provide a surprisingly refreshing slice of cinematic heaven. This is Spawn.
So the film starts off with a voiceover from Cagliostro, played by Nicole Williamson.
The battle between heaven and hell has waged eternal. Their armies fueled by souls harvested on Earth. The devil Malbolgia has sent a lieutenant to Earth to recruit men who will turn the world into a place of death in exchange for wealth and power. A place that will provide enough souls to complete his army and allow Armageddon to begin. All the Dark Lord needs now is a great soldier. Someone who can lead his hordes to the gates of heaven and burn them down.
And I gotta say, awesome intro.
The haunting imagery of death and suffering combined with Williamson's badass voice really get me hooked in the story right from the get-go. And while the HBO series is superior, give New Line Cinema credit for hiring someone to do voiceover who doesn't sound more obnoxious and pretentious than the amazing Atheist.
The battlefields have changed, but the prize has always remained the same. The human soul.
Keep in mind, this isn't a voiceover monologue that would just happen like once or twice in the show. No, it was fucking constant. It would not stop. Like, I was hearing those voiceover monologues in my sleep.
Time for a new warrior to emerge. The prize has always remained the same. Each warrior is born as a clean slate as they tear away each new layer. The only instincts of strength to keep them recruited.
We cut to a military base in Hong Kong where we see a hitman clearing a floor full of landing personnel for an assassination attempt. The hitman is Al Simmons, played by the biggest badass in the universe, Michael Jai White.
Seriously, this guy is so over-the-top cool. He can make Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jet Li, Sylvester Stallone, and Jean-Claude Van Damme his personal bottom bitches in about 3 seconds. Don't believe me? Here's a mere taste of the kind of ass-kickery that Michael Jai White pulls in his movies on a regular basis. Yeah! The Honey Badger shits himself when thinking about Michael Jai White.
Simmons takes out his target via mounted remote control missile launcher, but unfortunately manages to catch quite a few civilians in the crossfire. But more on that later. Just as a side note, I watched this movie with one of my best friends who absolutely loves action movies, and within 2 seconds of that explosion, she immediately said, "I love this movie already." Not really a point in this film's favor, but just a little side note I want to make. So the credits start, and I have to admit, this opening scene goes on way too long. This intro features an entire 2-minute song and still goes on for practically another 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Stop it now, Derek. Oh, stop it.
I mean, to be fair, the imagery's cool and the song's fun and catchy as hell. But to start off your movie with an opening like this... and then transition to a 2-minute and 30-second title sequence? Doesn't feel consistent to me.
So after the intro, we are immediately introduced to the two villains of the movie. The Violator, played by John Leguizamo and kept in the shadows for now, and Jason Wynn, played by Martin Sheen. And I swear to God, everything that comes out of the Violator's mouth is fucking gold.
Simmons. He's doing a great job where he is. Why do you want him?
Why do you people always question why? Ask why. When how is so much more fun.
Believe me, more on him later.
Cut to Al's best friend Terry Fitzgerald, played by D.B. Sweeney.
And yes, I am aware that Terry was originally going to be played by Edward Norton, and yes, that would have been awesome.
As he discovers that Al's assassination mission cost the lives of multiple innocent civilians, he goes on to confront Al about it.
Hey Al, what happened last night? Look at this. What a friggin' mess. We were supposed to be taking out the bad guys, not innocent bystanders. Another Jason Wynn special.
What do you mean?
Seems like an awful lot of Wynn's ops have screwed the pooch lately. Don't worry, Al. Lighten up. I got your back. Semper Fi. Good to go.
Right.
First off, I gotta say, I really love how likable they made this version of Al Simmons.
For those of you who don't know, Comics Al was really kind of a dick. Okay, really a dick. He abused his wife Wanda, took pleasure in killing innocent people, he didn't trust Terry. That said, the movie's version of Al is way more likable and sympathetic. She's protective and loving of Wanda.
Hey, Spaz. Same routine, all right? Guard the house, guard Wanda. Wanda's the best thing that ever happened to me.
He seems overall friendly, and even though you could argue that he does know he's killing innocent people, you can tell that it's really weighing on his conscience. Michael Jai White's gone record calling Spawn the most tragic character I've encountered in any cinematic production, and commented on how much of a challenge it was to make a government assassin who came back from hell so sympathetic and likable. But I absolutely believe he 100% pulled it off. I love Jai White's facial acting in the scenes when confronted about all the suffering he's caused from Terry or Jason.
Have you read your profile recently? You are a borderline psychopath. Perfect for government service. No guilt, no fear. You're a killing machine.
You're wrong about me, Wynn.
Am I? Have you ever stopped to consider that you won't be happy doing anything else?
He's a really complex character. If anything, I feel like this version of Al Simmons is at war with himself. I feel like there is a small part of Al Simmons that actually does enjoy killing, but he has enough of a conscience to know that that side of him has to be put down. He's a great example of a character fighting against his own nature. He wants a new life, and if he could back out of this, he would. And that's exactly what he ends up doing, as he confronts Wynn, telling him that he's officially quitting. Wynn tells him that he has one last mission, taking out a North Korean bioplant before retirement.
Right, because the final job always went so well for everybody who tried it. I don't know why I did a southern accent.
Simmons goes in snapping necks and cashing checks until he finds that Wynn has double-crossed him. Turns out his final mission involved Wynn and his team releasing a deadly biological virus onto a nearby town. Simmons tries to stop Wynn, but is shot by Wynn's second-best assassin, Jessica Priest, played by Melinda Clarke. Priest douses Simmons in gasoline, and Wynn lights him on fire, leaving him to die at the bioplant. By the way, that wasn't a stunt double. That was really Michael Jai White, and he was really lit on fire. Like I said, world's greatest badass. And speaking of badass... So Simmons is sent to hell, and wakes up on a rooftop near a church, burned and racked with pain. And you gotta love his reactions of horror upon realizing what he's become. Also, that nearby church is almost entirely CGI. As much as people rip on the effects of this movie, and possibly for good reason, that church looks fucking gorgeous. The cinematography for the alleys is great too. I absolutely adore the dark and brownish lighting they got for the set. It's grimy, it's depressing, it's ugly, and it's fucking great. Speaking of ugly, that monster makeup for Al's burned face is absolutely phenomenal. Anyways, Al's confronted by an old homeless man named Cogliostro, aka Nicole Williamson of the opening monologue, who offers a home and refuge for Al. Al refuses, insisting he already has a home.
A new hellspawn has emerged from the darkness, reborn on Earth. drawn to the alley by an unknown force, his necroplasmic body racked by pain, his memories fragmented. To him, North Korea was moments ago, but Malbolgia kept him secluded in darkness for 5 long years, while things on Earth changed in ways that will only feed his anger and desire for revenge. He sets out to reclaim his humanity. How much is left remains to be seen.
Seriously, not even the biggest fan of the Spawn HBO series can possibly say that that syphilitic old cunt from the animated series is better than the live-action one.
So Al returns home, and rather than finding the open, loving arms of his beloved wife, he finds that his wife is happily remarried to his best friend Terry, even having a child with him. And I gotta say, behind Gwen's death in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and Superman's death in Batman v Superman, I honestly find Al's scenes mourning his wife and missing his old life on Earth to be the second most emotional scenes ever in a comic book movie. Granted, they're short, and it does piss me off that there aren't more of them, but even in small doses, I find them extremely effective. This is somebody who sold his soul and gave up everything that mattered to him just to see his wife again one more time. And not only is his wife happily remarried without him in her life, not only does she have a child with somebody else but not him, not only is that person married to his best friend of all people, who said he would always have his back, but when Wanda sees Al in his burned, unrecognizable mutant form, this is her reaction.
Hey, baby, huh? Terry! Terry!
Wanda!
What's going on?
I came out here and this man was lying next to Cyan.
You okay, honey?
Uh-huh.
What are you doing back here? Huh?
What is...
Just the outright disgust in Wanda's face combined with the sheer agony in Spawn's voice just make this a really emotional scene. You can tell that Spawn and Wanda really loved each other in life, and they had a lot of great chemistry. It's really tragic and really well-handled stuff.
Spawn's nightmarish meeting with Wanda is interrupted by the Violator in disguise as a birthday clown, who takes him back to the alleys. And remember what I said earlier about everything coming out of his mouth being gold? Well, I think I'm just gonna let him do the talking.
Oh, what an adorable little girl. Oh, look at her. Can I keep her?
Hey.
Oh, of course not. No pets allowed. What does it remind you of, huh?
Get away from me, you freak!
Oh, coming from a monster that really hurts my feelings.
Feels like my skin is about to explode.
That's just your viral necroplasm going through its larval stage. Move over. Pretty soon you're gonna get hair in funny places. You're gonna start thinking about girls.
How can anyone not fall in love with this villain?
The Violator explains that Al Simmons died years ago, and that he is back on Earth due to a deal he made with the devil Malbolgia. The deal was that he would come back to Earth to see his wife Wanda again if he became Hellspawn and General of Hell's armies.
And because it's basically the big elephant in the room at this point, I will address the CGI.
Hell has a pretty cool Renaissance painting design to it, but Malbolgia himself looks like he was animated by an 8-year-old on Microsoft Paint. Granted, Malbolgia was originally meant to be a puppet and Hell merely a black room, and the effects team only had a couple weeks to animate Hell and Malbolgia, so I don't necessarily think it's a lack of talent or effort that was the problem. That said, Malbolgia looks like shit. Oh, and this line sucks too.
If you fail me, you will die.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's folly to threaten a dead person with, you know, death.
The Violator further explains, or rather implies, that Spawn must commit one more evil deed in order for Hell to truly have ownership of his soul. That deed killing Jason Wynn and avenging his murder. And in return for his services, they'll get Wanda back for him as his wife. And on top of that, we get some more fucking hysterical lines from him.
That's it. That's the spirit. Just think of me as your guardian angel. The clown from hell. You're Jimmy Stewart, and I'm Clarence. Well, every time somebody farts, a demon catches her wings. Oops, twins.
I'm sorry, it's just every line out of this character's mouth is just a golden treasure to be shared.
So Spawn tells the Violator in no uncertain terms to fuck off.
Well, actually what he says is,
Get away from me, you fudge-packing midget.
The Violator, realizing he's not getting to Spawn, decides to take him to his grave, where Al Simmons is shocked and horrified upon finding his tombstone and corpse, particularly emotionally shattered when coming across his locket. Inside, a picture of him and Wanda. Once again, Jai White definitely proves he has some serious acting chops, conveying all the tragedy, pain, and fear his character is experiencing, even through all that heavy makeup. And that cry of agony he gives upon remembering his old life is just heartbreaking.
Every time you go out there, you come back a little bit more dead inside.
It turns out Spawn and the Violator had come just around the same time a group of dipshit Satanist teenagers, including Guy Fieri and that brain-dead guy from everyone's high school who flexed in the middle of math exams, had been practicing a ritual. Which leads to possibly the greatest line in cinema history.
Did, like, Satan send you guys? How come God hogs up all the good followers and me get all the retards?
The Satanists piss off Al Simmons until he ends up fully transforming into Spawn, necroplasmic symbiote suit and all. And once again, for a movie so bashed for its shoddy CGI, it's a pretty cool and convincing special effect. And the end product looks pretty damn sweet. Unfortunately, Al has little time for reflecting on his new abilities, his mind on the one thing left that truly matters to him, Wanda, and the grievous mistake he made of taking one last assassin job.
Wanda, what have I done?
It's a small but solid scene which does a good job showing how some mistakes you just can't take back. And once again, Jai White's acting is outstanding. One subtle touch that not many people notice is that even when he's transported back to the alleys and the Violator is talking to him, he's still caught up in his own moment. He can't focus on anything but this horrifying nightmare he's found himself in. Oh, and the Violator eats pizza with maggots on it. That was real, by the way. John Leguizamo ate not one, but 2 pizzas covered in live waxworms after throwing up when eating the first one. So we cut back to Jason Wynn and Priest as they laugh at Terry doing his best Tommy Lauren impression.
Since the unfortunate incident in Southeast Asia last week, Director Wynn has been meeting with several world leaders in an attempt to quell the proliferation of global conflict.
And has this produced any positive results? I heard that last week's peace summit between the Arabs and the Israelis was disrupted by bomb threats from the Christian coalition.
Fitzgerald may be a spineless bureaucrat, but he's doing a great PR job for me. The whole world is going to hell in a handbasket, but thanks to him, it's just another story on the 5 o'clock news.
Hey, it's like Donald Trump if you're more subtle.
Yeah, as much as I praise most of the performances in this movie, I gotta admit, Martin Sheen is really silly as Jason Wynn. Everything from his dorky bow tie to his red cheeks to his chubby figure is just comical. Oh yeah, and did I mention that his voice sounds like a bad Captain Planet villain?
Now we have the only vaccine. Now we have weapons in place to disperse Heat 16 over half of this godforsaken globe.
I mean, granted his performance is entertaining as hell, but the whole thing comes off like a little kid dressing up in his daddy's work clothes to try and look more serious.
For those of you who never watched the HBO series, Wynn is not supposed to be a clown. On the contrary, Jason Wynn was one of the most evil, cunning, and terrifying comic book villains ever. He was a man with a plan, and his tactics were so ruthless they made Whitey Bulger look like an upstanding citizen. This fat joke would be more intimidating if his dialogue was actually replaced with Donald Trump.
Free trade can be wonderful if you have smart people, but we have people that are stupid.
I mean, he's not even threatening when he's, well, threatening characters we like.
How are Cyan and Wanda?
Okay, except for that one. But not for the reasons they intended. I hope.
Anyways, Jason Wynn explains that his scientists have developed a virus called Heat 16, which Wynn plans to unleash on all nations refusing to bow under his will. Also, this may be the first time in a pre-2010s movie that I've heard the Ebola virus mentioned.
Heat 16. Makes the Ebola virus look like a skin rash.
Anyways, Wynn and Terry end up going to an international summit to meet with potential business partners. By the way, that woman in the blue dress and Spawn earrings is Angela, an angel warrior from the Spawn comics who slays Hellspawn. Her appearance here is little more than cameo, but I assume she was to appear in sequels as a major character, had the film done better. Much like Aquaman has a small cameo in Batman v Superman, but will eventually be a major character in Justice League. Spawn crashes the party in pretty spectacular fashion, crashing through the ceiling window and gliding to the ground using his cape. And once again, the CGI is really impressive. The movement and detail of Spawn's cape and chains is astounding for the time. It's almost like they're living organisms. Spawn confronts Wynn and delivers 2 of the many badass one-liners in the movie.
In fact, there are so many that I'm just gonna do a badass one-liners counter.
What's the matter, Jason? You don't recognize your own handiwork. You sent me to hell, Jason. I'm here to return the favor.
Of course, Wynn isn't the only source of Spawn's rage at the party, as he runs into his former best friend turned daily ass-pounder of life.
I trusted you.
Jesus.
How could you marry Wanda? How could you?
Al, when you died. Wanda was devastated. Do you know about Cyan?
The conflict between Al's love for Wanda, his anger at Terry, and his hate of himself is really apparent on Jai White's face here.
Not only does this little exchange make Spawn a much more sympathetic character, it also makes his emotional crisis and inner turmoil a lot more relatable. Though, that being said, I do wish we got a little bit more scenes with Wanda. I'd like to hear her feelings a lot more.
Spawn is about to kill Wynn when he's suddenly stopped by Priest. A pretty kick-ass firefight ensues before Spawn manages to momentarily escape.
What the hell is that?
It's Simmons!
What are you talking about?
That thing is Simmons! I want you to nail him now!
Whoa! Sexual harassment's a crime there, buddy. I mean, paying your top assassin to dress like a dominatrix is one thing, but paying her to fuck dudes is just entirely crossing the line.
So Spawn shows up and attacks Priest, and as sympathetic and likable as the movie has made him, it is somewhat refreshing to see Spawn show his more sadistic side, taking a chunk out of Priest's leg and laughing at her screams. He is an assassin from hell after all. While not a terrible person, he certainly has a lot of darkness in him.
It's a little early for Halloween, Simmons.
Where you're going, every day's Halloween.
You don't have the guts.
You're right.
Coming!
Why do all the one-liners come in twos?
Wynn sends more security in, and a larger firefight ensues between them and Spawn. The whole thing is pretty exciting, but the highlight's gotta be this combat flip he does over the balcony. One of the coolest stills I've seen in any movie. Spawn takes out some guards, but eventually gets overwhelmed. A newcomer with his abilities, and with no knowledge of how to control them, not to mention having lost his firearms, Spawn is understandably sloppy to say the least, and naive on his new powers.
Holy shit!
I just love that line. Shows how completely freaked out he is with his powers. And can you believe the original line was this?
Hell yeah.
Way cringier, and completely out of character, I might like that.
Spawn flies away from the fight, again showing off that awesome cape effect, as we pan to a shot of Spawn brooding near a church, his cape flowing in the wind. It's a beautiful, iconic shot, and one of my favorites in a sci-fi or fantasy movie. So the dust settles from Spawn's firefight as paramedics come to clean up the carnage. And I fucking love this exchange here.
Alright, what do we got here, fellas? Gunshot wound to the head, Doc. She's dead.
You never see doctors that bluntly honest in movies anymore. They're always unrealistically crying about people they've never met. But here, they're just like, oh, she's dead. Gotta admit, it's pretty funny.
Speaking of funny, here's more of Martin Sheen being not scary.
Why didn't you warn me about Simmons? Fun! Does this look like playland to you? No. Kill Priest! Damn near killed me!
His whining's so childish, even the fucking clown calls him out on it.
Don't get your panties in a wad. Nobody's bitching at me. Why didn't you tell me about Simmons? Why didn't you tell me it was gonna hurt? Am I gonna go to hell? I'll grow up, you syphilitic ballsack.
Anyways, the Violator explains that he plans to rig a detonator to Wynn's heart for the Heat-16 bomb, meaning that if he dies, the virus is released upon the world. Knowing that the forces of hell could easily just double-cross him and destroy the world at any fucking time, Wynn does what anyone with 5 brain cells would do and...
That's a good idea, I like that.
Wait, what?
That's a good idea, I like that.
What?
That's a good idea, I like that.
You see, what Wynn is secretly trying to say is that he's secretly the dumbest fucking human being on Earth.
Now stay sharp, the night is young. Ladies!
Clowny.
Ah, yes. Have you ever ridden a clown's pig pony? But I think it's about time.
Yeah, when a fat farting clown midget gets more women than you, you know you're pussy repellent.
Talk about not getting laid.
Soon after, Al Simmons visits Wanda at a presentation, where she's making a speech about the death and diseases, some of them thought to be wiped out, spread by an explosion at a North Korean biochemical plant 5 years ago. An explosion that Al had an integral part in.
And this leads to one of the movie's biggest themes, that even the smallest choices have the biggest consequences.
Al Simmons knew before he died that there was something fishy about his last mission. He knew that what he was about to do would probably hurt innocent people. However, even knowing all that, he still made a conscious decision to go through with it anyway, as he was unable to give up his murderous lifestyle. This would lead to him and many innocents suffering for it. It was bad enough that he had previously been responsible for murdering a group of innocents on an assassination mission, but here, his seemingly insignificant choice led to the horrible deaths of countless people half a decade after he made it.
Thought I was getting rid of the world's vermin, and I turned out to be one of them.
Al Simmons later catches up with Cyan, the daughter of Wanda and Terry, in another fairly emotional scene. Cyan is a very complicated figure for Al. On one hand, as Wanda's daughter, Al does feel a paternal bond with her. On the other hand, Cyan reminds Al of her mother and a love they shared when he was alive. She's a reminder of the life he was robbed, a reminder that for all the love he shared with Wanda, he never had a chance to give her a child of his own. For all their talk, their hopes, their dreams, they never came to be, because of his actions.
You have your mother's eyes. I knew her a long time ago.
Of course, my enjoyment of the scene comes from a purely objective place. It's not like, you know, I was in love with a girl and I'd been in a relationship with her for a while and we talked about, you know, getting married and having kids someday, and I just make one bad decision after another bad decision after another bad decision after another bad decision, and it eventually leads to a breakup, and of course I'm still in love with her and she's married to somebody else now.
Alex! Mandy! Martha!
Oh yeah, and we get this scene. It's hilarious, comes the fuck out of nowhere, was improvised by John Leguizamo himself, and honestly requires no commentary.
Funny, he's our man. If he can't kill him, no one can. Yeah, he's funny. S to the P to the A to the war. S to the P to the A to the R. Go funny.
Al's former dog Spaz recognizes him and decides to follow him home. Or at least the closest thing Al has to a home, that being the alleys. When they get back, Spot witnesses a homeless man hitting his son. Being a former assassin regarded for his violent and psychopathic behavior, Spawn takes it pretty well. Before Spawn can do any major damage, the boy steps in to defend his dad, Spawn realizing that he's gone too far.
Remember earlier when I said that Al Simmons in this movie is a character fighting against his own inner nature? This scene demonstrates that perfectly.
Even after death, Spawn resorts to violence as a quick answer to the uncertainty of the world and the cruelty of the people in it. That, however, just isn't how the world works. You can't just make the world a better place by erasing the ethically questionable people from it. Those choices have ripples that affect good people. That can range from sparking years of death and suffering to just taking a son away from his father. Spawn hears that he's become the world's vermin at Wanda's press conference, but he sees it here. It's a small scene, but certainly an effective one in terms of character development. Oh, also, throw in one more tally for the badass one-liners count.
Whoa, awesome hardware. What are you gonna do with it?
Throw someone a going-away party.
You know, sometimes I wake up at night down in the alley and wonder, is this hell?
No, that would be Philadelphia Kid.
The Violator catches up with Spawn, revealing that he was in fact the one who ordered Gwen to kill him, and that when Spawn kills Gwen, the Heat-16 virus will destroy humanity. And for all those questioning that whole character fighting against his own nature thing I brought up earlier, he basically spells it out for you.
Well, if it isn't curious crispy. Well, the evil's been there ever since you were soup in your mama's crotch. The DNA spelled DOA and we just nursed it along. All those assassin missions we're just training for what's coming.
Also, this line delivery is pretty chilling. And also what Simon Pegg probably told J.J. Abrams when they made The Force Awakens.
And all you have to do is just lead us to the Holy Land so we can burn it down.
Spawn refuses to help the Violator, resulting in the Violator trying to kill Spaz. Spawn shoots him before he can finish the job, which pisses off Violator enough to show his true form.
So you want to do it the hard way? I warned you. I'm just gonna have to teach you a lesson. No more clowning around. I'm not the Vindicator, or the Victimizer, or the Vaporizer, or the Violator.
And what follows is, hands down, the most visually stunning scene in the movie.
Even today, this transformation sequence looks outstanding. It took 8 months to animate it, and you can clearly see the effort and passion on screen. Comic fans should recognize the Violator's references to the three other Fleabag brothers of hell before transforming, the Vindicator, the Victimizer, and the Vaporizer, and non-comic fans should be downright shocked at this scene. I watched this movie with two of my best friends who had never even heard of Spawn before I showed it to them, and both were blown away and completely caught off guard at the clown's transformation and true appearance. Spawn and the Violator have a pretty sweet battle on a rooftop that eventually finds its way to the alleys. The dark gothic cinematography really bring atmosphere and style to the fight, and the effects for both Spawn and the Violator really shine. ILM, the same company that created the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, did the special effects for the movie. Much like that movie, they really want to make this one a mix of practical and CGI, especially in this scene. They both shine here and really do hold up 20 years after the original's release, but the animatronics are particularly realistic. By the way, that homeless guy in the alley is actually Todd McFarlane, the creator of Spawn. McFarlane desperately wanted a cameo in the movie, and he thought there was a funny irony in him almost being killed by his own creation. The Violator ends up defeating Spawn by impaling him onto an iron gate, and we get some more brilliant comedic lines.
Twinkle, twinkle, little Spawn. Gosh, you look like crap. So fertilize my lawn. Either you lead the army or win place. Pin the tail on Wanda. Hey, Wanda, come on. How about give me some of that sweet stuff, baby? Oh, no. Oh, please, wind, don't, please. Somebody help me now. Forget Terry. It's my turn to ride the Wanda carousel. Oh, look. Ooh, ooh. Last one there gets her rotten eggs. Wind and Wanda sitting in a tree. S-U-C-K-I-N-T.
I will concede, though, that the crucifixion symbolism is a little bit heavy-handed. Superman is pretty much the only superhero where Jesus symbolism doesn't feel forced and contrived.
Anyways, the Violator explains to Spawn that either he joins Hell's army and kills Wynn, or Wynn will kill Wanda, or worse. When the Violator leaves, Cagliostro comes to help provide Spawn some much-needed guidance.
It seems the truth has taken its toll on you.
Spawn's response is equally as deep and poignant.
I'm gonna kill that asshole.
Fearing Spawn may put his personal desires over the greater good, Cagliostro shows Spawn the collateral damage that his rage and selfish mindset have caused, namely the death of the father of Zack, a homeless urchin whom Spawn had befriended.
And this is where the consequences that Al reaps on people really start to get to him. Even in his new life as Spawn, his selfish mindset and attitude still find a way to get people killed.
Even in that fight I previously showed you, Spawn shows a far greater concern for killing the Violator than he shows at all for protecting any of the alley's inhabitants, putting his own emotions over the lives of others. And while this movie definitely has some weaker moments dialogue-wise, this exchange here between Spawn and Cagliostro is really well written and truly gets the emotional conflict of Al Simmons out perfectly.
Your vengeance, their pain. When Wanda, none of this is worth the cost.
Those are the only things that matter to me now.
Your anger's your weakness, and they'll use it to rob you of any humanity you have left.
And what makes the scene even better is that Cagliostro is a fantastic mentor here. I've commented before how I hate Ben Kenobi in the original trilogy, particularly as a mentor figure, and that really comes down to the fact that he's very dishonest, manipulative, and really emotionally cold to Luke. I don't get that from Cagliostro at all here. This is somebody who really empathizes with Spawn, who knows exactly how he feels and what he must do.
This is especially complimented by Nicole Williamson's outstanding performance in the role. He really brings the empathy, humanity, warmth, and compassion that the character really needs. Spawn, not wanting to get too sappy, heads to his personal armory to load up on guns and ammo and add more quotes to the one-liner counter.
Kiss it goodbye, clown.
Just what they want. You're playing their game.
Then I'll play dirty.
Guns are useless.
Cagliostro quickly knocks Spawn off his high horse and begins a little bit of training. And although it isn't much and the scene is way too short, Jai White and Williamson have excellent chemistry, and it is somewhat satisfying to see Spawn actually enjoying his powers and having a bit of fun in a character arc so full of tragedy. Just that smile he gives when first activating his spikes, or that little bit of cockiness he gives after getting his chains to work, just feels so earned for the character.
Not bad.
Spawn doesn't have much time to celebrate or train though, as he quickly heads to Wanda's. He arms himself with 2 submachine guns, which he then decides he doesn't need.
Seriously, why the fuck would you bring heavy-ass guns if you're never gonna use them?
And he takes after the Violator on a stolen motorcycle.
And this chase scene is awesome.
The fast but not too fast editing, the sheer feeling of danger and thrills. Above all, I think it's the music that I love most about this scene. A lot of my friends listen to rave music, and I make it a priority for us to listen to One Man Army by The Prodigy whenever we chill. It's just perfect blood-pumping music for a chase scene. Cut back to Terry Fitzgerald, who through the help of his trusty Untitled GameCube discs, comes to the not-all-shocking discovery that Wynn is out of his mind.
Wynn is out of his mind.
Terry manages to send the data on the GameCube disc to a reporter, but is soon kidnapped with Wanda and Cyan by Jason Wynn wearing the most feminine motorcycle jacket ever. Seriously, Jason Wynn just exists in this movie to suck. There is no competence to him.
You disappoint me, Terry.
He didn't blow up the TV to stop the email, by the way. He found out earlier that Terry had wrote a mean tweet about him.
You are fake news.
Oh yeah, he's still creepy about Wanda and Cyan too.
Hey, you're a very lucky man, Terrence. The kid stays with me.
This guy makes the child catcher look approachable.
Spawn eventually catches up with the Violator and turns home to his wife in a very literal return to Threshold. When he comes back, he finds that his wife is being held at knife point by Jason Wynn. Wynn orders Spawn to join Hell's army and threatens to kill Wanda if he doesn't. And Jai White's acting in the scene is just phenomenal. Even Martin Sheen has no choice but to step up his game to match it.
Get away from her.
I can't do that. She wants me.
You touch her, and you die slow.
All right, Spawn. No more fun and games. Either you join Hell's army or she dies. After I'm done.
I will rip your heart out. Let her go.
So what you gonna be? Time's running out. Too late.
No!
The acting in this scene is amazing.
The subtle way that Michael Jai White combines Spawn's fear for Wanda's life with his boiling hatred for Jason Wynn is just infectious. The trembling of his voice and the intense but almost powerless sense of anger he gives is just perfect. I'll even give credit to Martin Sheen here. Those giddy, mocking last words he gives are probably the only time in the movie where he's genuinely scary. Well, minus the times he implies he's gonna molest Cyan.
I mean, Jesus, the acting in the scene is so great that even Michael Jai White screaming "No" sounds genuine. Yeah! One of the most cliched, overused lines in the Emotional Crisis line book, and Michael Jai White still manages to make it sound heartfelt. How do you do that?
Enraged at the murder of his wife, Spawn directs his anger to Jason Wynn, intending to kill him. Wynn warns Spawn about the detonator in his heart killing everyone on Earth, but a hate-blinded Spawn replies that he has nothing left to lose anymore. Just as he's about to kill him, Jason Wynn finally says something to snap him out of it.
If you kill me, you kill her!
And for a movie that admittedly has a really campy side to it, this scene is surprisingly heartfelt.
Even after his wife's death, even after having seemingly lost his reason to exist, he still puts honoring his wife's memory over fulfilling his petty revenge. Cyan isn't even his child, and he still puts all of his unimaginable hatred and resentment at Jason Wynn for what he took from him aside out of respect and love for Wanda's legacy.
It's a truly meaningful scene that shows a shocking amount of subtlety. It's something you really wouldn't expect from this kind of film, and it really catches me off guard.
However, it turns out that Wanda isn't dead after all, and that her death was all a ruse set up by the Violator, who has the actual Wanda hostage.
And while John Leguizamo spends most of the movie as a comedic character, give credit where credit is due. He is positively chilling here.
And then I'm gonna have a little creme de Wanda. I'm gonna let you watch too.
Scary stuff, and it really makes you wonder what kind of magic Leguizamo could have pulled off had this been R-rated.
Luckily for Spawn, Cagliostro comes in just in the nick of time to save her.
Come and get me!
And you gotta love the Violator's reaction to him.
Cagliostro! Come and get me!
He doesn't give a fuck that Cagliostro just sliced open his arm. And why would you when you're the world's greatest troll?
The Violator pulls Spawn and Cagliostro into hell, where they engage in a pretty visually impressive fight scene. Don't get me wrong, it looks fake as shit, but just the nasty and Renaissance-esque aesthetic of hell is really unique and interesting from a visual standpoint. Though the fight is sadly ruined by the dumbest line I've ever heard in a comic book film, with the worst CGI model I've ever seen.
If you won't lead my army, then you must die. Never!
After that stupid line, Spawn manages to use his powers to ward off Malbolgia's army, save Cagliostro, and escape back to Earth.
Which brings us to my favorite scene of the movie.
For 30 seconds, nothing is spoken by Spawn or Wanda. Michael Jai White completely lets his facial acting do the talking, particularly his sorrowful eyes. And then, Spawn finally speaks.
They belong together. There's no place for me here.
And there you have it. Spawn has seen firsthand the hell that his interference has put in Wanda's life, as well as the happiness that she has with her husband and daughter. He knows he'll never be truly happy without Wanda in his life. Yet despite that, he still puts Wanda's needs over his own, and lets her go for her own good. While before Spawn may have loved Wanda, this is the first time that Spawn truly loves Wanda unconditionally, sacrificing any hope or dream of a happy life so that Wanda can retain hers. It's a beautiful, understated scene.
Make no mistake, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here. Spawn is no masterpiece. It has flaws, big ones. But that being said, this scene is one of my favorite scenes in any film.
But Spawn doesn't have too much time to reminisce over his decision, as it appears he's been followed by the Violator. The Violator tries to eat Spawn, but Spawn manages to get the upper hand through his chains. And if you somehow still doubt the ass-kicking awesomeness that is Michael Jai White, just listen to how badass he delivers this one-liner.
Like this!
I think my dick must have grown an extra 6 inches. In fact, you know, fuck this! That line must be worth at least 3 one-liners on its own. That's how well delivered it is.
Like this!
And that's not even all! He gets 2 more one-liners in the span of a minute! He's just not stopping!
Give my regards to your boss. Tell him he's next. Not bad for a dead man.
I mean, how can anyone deny Michael Jai White rocked in this movie?
Beginner's luck.
Oh, fuck you! He kicked ass and so does this film.
To recap, Spawn is a surprisingly well-acted film. Michael Jai White and John Leguizamo both turned in some of the best performances ever in a comic book film, and Nicole Williamson is similarly great. The film maintains a great balance between camp and darkness, knowing when to be comedic, silly, and over the top, and when to be emotional, meaningful, and serious without ever coming across as tonally confused and while handling both sides well. The film boasts some great production design, with phenomenal sets, great makeup, and mostly solid CGI, and it's got a kick-ass soundtrack. Best of all, the movie has deep and meaningful themes about unconditional love and putting your loved one's needs before your own, which are executed beautifully through Spawn's well-written character arc. While most of the CGI is surprisingly solid, when it's not, it is inexcusably, shockingly, unforgettably bad. The dialogue is something of a mixed bag. Some of the lines are well written, while others come off like a 4th grader trying to be edgy when writing about Satan. The film is also way too fast-paced. While the character and story development are handled well, they do feel a bit rushed, and this movie definitely needed to be at least an extra 20 minutes longer. Martin Sheen is also pretty awful in this film. His performance is cartoonish and his character is a moron, which really surprises me as I know Martin Sheen's a fan of the material, having signed on to the project because of his nephew's love of the comic. I think this was largely done so Wynn didn't overshadow the Violator, but nevertheless, it just made him look silly.
Did you love the Oscar-winning Suicide Squad? Then there's a 98% chance you're gonna love this film.
Honestly, you can really consider the Oscar-winning Suicide Squad to be a spiritual successor of sorts to Spawn, and Spawn the grandfather of the Oscar-winning Suicide Squad. Whether you loved or hated the Oscar-winning Suicide Squad, I truly believe you have Spawn to thank for its existence. Both mix a campy tone with a serious one, both deal with characters forced to let go of their desires for the good of others, both deal with characters learning how to love, both center on anti-heroes seeking redemption, both have similar cinematography, CGI, and visual style, and both have a very distinct, energetic soundtrack. The Oscar-winning Suicide Squad is a very divisive film, so recommending Spawn to fans of that film may not sound like a ringing endorsement, but I sincerely love and adore both. Spawn is not perfect, and admittedly could have been even better. Lore knows that a longer runtime, a better Jason Wynn, and less cringy dialogue would have vastly improved its quality. That said, it's well acted, exciting, funny when it wants to be, and emotional when it tries to be. It was a home run in an era when nearly every comic book movie was a strikeout, and is the farthest thing from bad. I'm gonna give Spawn an A-.
So that's it for Spawn, an underrated superhero film with a lot more brains and heart than people give it credit for. Join me next time on Diamonds in the Rough, where our next unrated movie will be from a galaxy far, far away. I'm Fearzet, signing out.
Yeah.
This summer, evil has a new enemy, justice has a new weapon, and the world has a new hero.